Welcome back to the MOOC course on qualitative research methods. My name is Aradhana Malik, and I've taken you through the different aspects of this course. Today in this lecture we are going to wind up whatever we had done. We'll just go through the entire course. We'll go through the outline, and we'll go through the different slides and different contents that we covered in this course. And if in the meantime, if before this is telecast or even after this is telecast, if you have any queries and you would like another session, please let us know, and we will do our best. We'll try our best to record a session including the explanations that you might need for various parts of the course. So I do not have any specific slides for this particular session. I thought I would just show you the outline and then just take you through different slides one by one, and different parts that we covered here. So this was the outline that we had. The course was intended to serve as a stimulant for interest in the field of qualitative research. The course was intended to give you an idea of what this huge, this very complex field of qualitative research involves, and so that is what has been covered here. The outline included an introduction to qualitative research, what the qualitative researcher does, differences between qualitative and quantitative research, history of qualitative research, etc. And this is how we covered I'll just go through the slides that we had. So we talked about qualitative research, we talked about the course, what the course entailed, what we would study. Then we talked about the differences between qualitative and quantitative research, and I told you, the bottom line was informed to you right in the beginning. The course is a stimulus to help you get interested in the field of qualitative research, get the ideas from here and explore as much as you would like. And many of you have been doing that. Many of you have been coming up with questions. Many of you have given us suggestions. Thank you very much for participating wholeheartedly in this course, for critically evaluating how we have taught you the course. That has been very, very helpful. And so this is what we wanted you to do. We wanted to start a discussion about this field that is not really talked about, especially on this side of the planet. Okay, then we talked about what qualitative research involves, what qualitative researchers study, the qualitative researcher as a bricklayer. This is one word that was added to my vocabulary after I went through this course, and this is how I started. I heard this word for the first time in the year 2000, and that was when I started using it, and then I realized that I could bring words from the fine arts into research, and from different ways of life into academic work. So it's an eye opener. Then characteristics of the qualitative researcher as a bricklayer. We talked about what qualitative researchers as bricklayers produce, etc. Then we discussed the differences between quantitative and qualitative research. We talked about the history of qualitative research. We talked about the various moments. Then we talked about the process of qualitative research. We discussed the dance between the self and the other, and going into and understanding things from the inside, and then coming out of the whole process and seeing and analyzing whatever we saw and captured as objectively as possible. Then we talked about various phases of the process of qualitative research. We talked about interpretation. We talked about different paradigms from which we can approach qualitative research. This is, once one knows, I was listening to some researchers some days ago, and this reinforced what I had learned about research on my own, that once you know which side you're on, once you know which frame of mind you're approaching your research from, once you know what you want to do with the results, once you know how you're going to use your results, it becomes much clearer to do what you're setting out to do. You need to have all those things in place. Take as much time as you need. Take as much time as you need to clarify these thoughts in your mind. You need to be crystal clear about what you want to get as a result of your research. How are you going to use it? Conducting research for the sake of conducting research has no meaning. Qualitative research specifically has absolutely no value, no benefit if it is not applied to the field. We understand things so we can take them back to the field. If you don't apply it, write it up in such a way that somebody else can, but there should be some practical applicability, because we study day-to-day occurrences. We don't study things in a lab. The world is our lab. Interpersonal interactions are our experiments. So we are collecting data all day. We are collecting data. I mean, of course, in different situations it is so much integrated with our lives that we see and we breathe everything we do, and we may not be taking down notes, but we are feeling it, we're thinking about it all the time, because it involves human beings and human behavior. So it becomes our responsibility as researchers to then give back to the very milieu that has given us this data, and that is very, very important. The paradigm that we approach the research from becomes very important in helping us identify what exactly is it that we want to study and why, and what are we going to do with it. We discussed the cornerstones of a paradigm. We talked about different paradigms. We discussed critical theory, etc. We looked at each paradigm in detail. We talked about constructivism. We talked about Feuerstachen. We talked about symbolic interactionism. We talked about here constructivist paradigm, then different types of constructivism. We talked about the problem of criteria. We talked about critical theory and how critical theory is important for evolution of ideas. Then we also talked about okay, this is all critical theory. Okay, then we talked about qualitative inquiry, research design, stages of research design, strategies of inquiry. Then we discussed these stages of qualitative research design, warm up, preparation, various stages of qualitative research design. Then we talked about methodology and bracketing, and then data triangulation, crystallization, etc. We talked about ethnography. We started talking about the techniques of data collection. So autoethnography. We talked about case studies. We talked about organizing around issues and case selection. And then we discussed the analysis and interpretation and an analyzing interpretive practice. We talked about grounded theory. We discussed grounded theory in very great detail. And we talked about participatory action research here. And then we started talking about methods of collecting and analyzing data. We discussed observation. We discussed interviews. We discussed the interpretation of documents and material culture. We discussed autoethnography, personal narrative and reflexivity. We discussed applied ethnography. Then we discussed visual methods in qualitative research. We discussed analyzing talk and text. So various ways of collecting data, various ways of dealing with different kinds of data were discussed. We discussed data management and analysis methods. We talked about various techniques here. We talked about analyzing chunks of text. and then we discussed the use of software in qualitative research. So this is, you know, going towards the future. I'm sure as time goes on, this will be you know, used more and more. Then we talked about interpretation, evaluation, and presentation. We discussed what interpretation is and how one can interpret the data that one collects. Then we started talking about writing as a method of inquiry. And here we talked about, and then we started talking about the application of social qualitative research to social program evaluation. We discussed how social programs are evaluated, and then we ended with the application of qualitative research on the policy process, and you know, how policies are formulated, how they are implemented, how they are evaluated in and through qualitative research. So this is all we discussed, and I hope this has given you an overview of what qualitative research is, how is it conducted, what it does, what it can do, its limitations, the opportunities it affords to you, the kinds of information it can help you garner, and how it can help you progress in your own chosen careers, and how it can make a difference to what you're trying to do. So I hope we have been able to sow the seeds of you know, and or we have been able to generate enough interest in this field of qualitative research. And if there are any questions, we'd be very happy to take them on the forum. If you want any of these contents to be developed in greater detail, please let us know through the feedback form, through the forum, and we can work towards developing brief 10 hours, 20-hour courses on those specific aspects that you want to study in greater detail, and we can move on, and we can give you those in the time to come. So thank you very much for staying with us. Thank you very much for participating in this course. Thank you very much for your feedback. Thank you very much for asking questions and submitting your assignments on time, and staying in touch with us. And I'll be you know, there'll be a form that is floated on the announcements portal along, or even on the forum. I'll have to check which is more appropriate, but there will be a form, and in which you know, we would like to create a network of students who are interested in continuing these discussions about qualitative research. So you'll get a message regarding that. If you are interested in participating, in discussing, in staying together electronically, please let us know through that form, and we will keep the network going. Thank you very much, and look forward to having you in other courses as well. Thank you.